everybody, and thanks for joining us today. We are Aduro, the human performance company. Just to give you guys a quick overview of who we are and what we do. At Aduro, we believe that the way to unlock true potential for people and organizations is through what we call human performance. And the way that we look at human performance is focusing on the whole human. So we believe that human performance is about focusing on other things beyond just a healthy diet and exercise. We want to be able to reach people in what they care about in their life. We believe that there are 4 primary elements of human performance. So health and fitness, growth and development, money and prosperity, and contribution and sustainability. And we feel that these areas all contribute to a person's resilience and ability to flourish. And understanding that everyone's needs are different, we meet people where they are in their well-being journey, and we give them the tools and support that they need to flourish in both work and life.
So my name is Katie Dunn. I'm really happy to be here. I am a senior account manager here at Aduro, and I have been here about 2.5 years. I work primarily with industrial and manufacturing clients. My background is in customer advisory and guidance and support, but also in marketing. I have a passion or love of using data to help make your program and my clients' programs fit their unique populations and their intentions. And that's actually a process that we have really refined here at Aduro. And so I represent, as an account manager, what we do here in general at Aduro.
And hello again, everybody. My name is Eduardo Gil de Montes. I'm the client marketing manager here at Aduro. I've been with Aduro for about 3 years now, leading a very talented group of designers for our marketing department. I'm personally very passionate about beautiful and thoughtful design. And one of my favorite things about my role here is that I get the incredible privilege of sitting down with our clients and helping them to think through what a culturally aligned brand looks like and how it will help engage their population. And then my team gets to turn around and bring it to life.
So we just launched a poll, so let me backtrack. The question was, do you think your current well-being brand resonates with your employees and your corporate culture? So I encourage you to answer that. And while you are answering that, let me jump into how we build a successful program strategy with our clients. So these are the steps that we take with our clients to build that. And the first things first, we take a look at your culture, your mission, and the why behind having a well-being program in the first place. So what brought you to well-being? Why is it important to you? Then we take that why to determine your goals and your program design and set up metrics for success. And then last but not least, the overall approach to the program design is the whole human approach. So as Eduardo mentioned, we are multifaceted humans, and it's not just about a health metric that determines well-being. So I will jump into that a little bit more, but let's talk through some of these results. So it looks like a majority of you said that we have some recognition of the brand, but no tie into the culture. And I'm glad to see that, only because I want to dig in a little bit deeper about how we can build it more into your culture. I'm also glad to see that there is some recognition. That means you've already laid some groundwork. So let's just see how we can build on that. So when we try to understand your culture, it starts with a cultural assessment or examination. When we start our relationship off with clients, we have an assessment that we use with them, and we use that as a jumping off point for a conversation to learn about what is important to their culture, and what drives them. Is it safety? Is it contribution and sustainability? And how that shows up in their environment. And then as part of that conversation, we learn about their leadership, their senior leaders. How involved are they in well-being, and why? Who specifically within their leadership team? And then outside of well-being, how do they engage with your employees, and who specifically? And then when we want to understand the employee perspective, part of our assessment is sending out a survey to your employee base where we can learn about not only the demographics of your population, but what motivates them, how do they want to engage, how do they want to be communicated with, and what kind of incentives are they interested in? And then we use all of that data from our cultural assessment, from our employee assessment, and from our conversations with you to drive our best practice recommendations to design a program that's relevant to your culture and your population, that is something that they want to actually engage in. And then when we talk about using your why to build out a success metrics and having hard numbers to look at through the year to see how we're doing. We set goals and then we look at these through the year. Some of our standard numbers that we look at are things like activation. So what are we doing to get people involved? Engagement, what are we doing to keep people participating? And then ultimately outcomes. Those are definitely things that check the boxes, but what can we do? What does true success look like? How does your program feel to your employees? Are they bought in? Are they excited? Are they making positive life changes? Ultimately, we want a program that people are excited about and that they want to share. And is it culturally relevant? So some of the things that we look at are satisfaction scores and feedback, direct feedback from employees. And when we think about creating a culturally intentional approach, it starts by looking at the whole person. So like Eduardo mentioned, again, it's a multifaceted human. Like we said, it's not just about a health metric. We're so much more than that. So it's individually driven, and also topically relevant. We want to offer resources to our participants that allow them to explore what interests them at that moment, and so that they can tap into what they want to work on or be great at. So if they're going through something, what resources are available to learn more and support them? Or if they want to be, a better leader within your organization, are there resources available for them to learn more and be the best that they can be? And then when we think about how do we develop a culturally intentional program, how do we want our well-being program to show up in our physical space? And how do we take that website and our app and how do we translate it into our space and tie it all together? An example of how it shows up here at Aduro, our program is called Happy 8 Hours. And it starts with our fearless leader, Darren White, CEO. He is passionate about financial well-being. And so here's an example. It doesn't just have to be health. He has a personal connection and passion for finances. And a success metric here is that we have 100% participation in our 401k because he's so passionate and he talks about it all the time. He inspired one of our employees who's a coach, Carl, to pay off an incredible amount of debt, who then wrote one of our most successful coaching programs, Budget Basics. And then I engaged in Budget Basics and was so inspired to start my savings up again and save for my first house. And I've talked about that to my colleagues, and the trickle-down effect of that has been huge. And that's just an example of what having a culture of well-being in your space can be like. And it all can start with a leader who has their own personal story. Another example of having it show up in your space and with people who are leading by example is with wellness champions. And wellness champions are employees rather than people in official positions of leadership. They are people who have a passion for well-being and they have a personal story themselves. And that's really important, and it doesn't have to be health specific. So they represent your brand because they're boots on the ground at each location division. They're approachable and they're your peers. And they can be successful in evangelizing your program because they're engaged in your program, they know the details, and if given the opportunity, they can have visibility into those success metrics that we talked about. And they feel like that they're part of driving that forward with promoting your screenings or on-site events. And again, leading by example. And as account managers, we are instrumental in helping guide strategy for our clients with Wellness Champions networks and how they recruit, how they incentivize, and how they're involved in program strategy ultimately. So I want to talk through an example of success with one of my clients. Well-being program strategy and culture is a never-ending process. This client it has a really engaged population. They've done a really good job building up incredible resources such as a medical center, a gym. They've even built safety into their well-being culture. But together we felt like we wanted to take it further and align back to their why. Their why was that they wanted to have a program that was supportive and provided resources and tools to their employees that help them flourish. But leadership took the initiative to go back and get some feedback from their employees and listen. And what some of that feedback was that it was too hard, it was confusing, it didn't actually feel supportive, and that was going against what the ultimate goal of the program was. So they came back to me and we worked together to use that data and feedback to completely redesign the program and improve and create a program that was meaningful, culturally relevant, and supportive. So it's just an example of how leadership and how culture need to continue to refine, listen, care, and align.
All right, so now we're going to take a look at our process for going about building a brand. And when we think about putting our brands together, we think about it in three high-level phases, if you will. So the first is research. It's just gaining some understanding of the organization from an external viewpoint. Then we go into discover, where we're actually sitting down and having deep conversations. And then we go into design, which is taking all of that information and using it to develop the visual identity. So let me kind of go into a little bit more detail here for you. So the first step in this process is the research phase. So initial client research, we take a look at some documentation and kind of external resources that we have available to us. First is our client intake survey. So the client intake survey gives us a really high-level overview of company demographics, such as age, gender, ethnicity, and language. It gives us an idea of overall company and employee goals for their program, and gives us key well-being areas that they want to focus on, such as growth and development or health and fitness. Then we take a look at the company website, which is the public face of the organization, and it gives us an idea of what's important from an organizational standpoint. The website tends to be kind of the primary example of the corporate identity out in the wild, and gives us important high-level messaging and the voice of the company externally. We take a look at mission statements and core values to help us understand what's important. And we look at key initiatives such as giving back initiatives or community causes, and also social media. Looking at social media gives us an idea of what's important to the employees and how they interact out in the world as representatives of the company. Then we go into the discovery phase. So with discovery, we take all of that initial research and we bring it to the table, and we sit down and we start with a conversation. And we like to pull in as many individuals from across the organization as possible. HR and benefits leaders, marketing individuals, and leadership, and even just employees from across the organization. And some clients like to actually take this back to their employees for their full input. Then after this, we go into a brand discovery. So we look at whether or not you have an existing well-being program and brand, and was it successful? If yes, what elements are we keeping? Is there an existing brand recognition that we can keep rolling with, such as a name, logo, colors, etc.? And if it wasn't successful, why not? And how can we help rebrand to revitalize that? The next consideration is, of course, corporate brand guidelines. How closely does the program need to be tied to the corporate brand? And are there limitations and requirements around the name, logo, colors, and images, such as using regional and demographic appropriate landscapes and people for who you are and where you are? Then we look at a cultural discovery, such as internal voice and messaging. And it's important to understand how the company speaks to their population, how employees and leaders speak to each other, and how does the internal voice of the company differ from the external voice of the company. We also look at the most effective communication channels that we can utilize for your organization. So is your organization tech savvy? If we can get through with digital communications such as social media, email, text messages, in-app notifications, or a non-tech savvy population, or a population without technical access during the day, we can look at print communications such as posters and environmental graphics. And then we look for any key cultural initiatives within the organization, such as company events, groups, clubs, mentorships, and trainings that help us really understand what's important and what you're focusing on. And the last step in this is actually kind of broken up into a couple different pieces. So we go into the design phase, and we look at conceptual design for providing different design concepts. We go through a revision process, and then we finalize and get you your final brand. So we start off with two initial design concepts. We put together a program name, logo, and platform graphics for consideration. And those two concepts gives our clients a choice in design direction. It also gives our designers room to develop different and unique designs. And it's an opportunity for us to show potentially some very corporate brand-minded clients something a little bit more unique for their program. And fun fact, there's almost always a very positive reaction to something a little bit more out of the box that we do for our clients. The next step in that process is going through a feedback and revision phase. Our clients get to choose a single design to move forward with, and then we open up communication to go back and forth and help refine that final design. And once you're happy with it, once we're happy with it, we deploy it across a handful of our systems, including your program platform, our brand on demand service, and our email communications. So we have a couple different examples here for you guys of brands that we have done for some very cultural forward clients of ours. The first one is Racetrack. And Racetrack is a good example of sticking close to a corporate brand guideline. We keep primary corporate brands and colors, iconography. And if you look at the name LifeTrack, we've played off of Racetrack, and we've kept that driving theme throughout to add just a little bit more fun to it. But you also see here are real people. So they showcase high quality photos of real employees at real racetrack locations. So you see authentic, friendly faces with real smiles and not contrived stock photos. They also highlight the diversity in their population. And so all of this, including seeing their peers' faces on the platform, really help create a level of trust and excitement in their program. Next up, we have ASICS. And ASICS is a good example of incorporating corporate brand elements while allowing for some creative flexibility for a more standalone brand. And being ASICS, they're of course, known for as a fitness brand, so very health and fitness oriented. But one of the things that we discovered in our conversations with them is that they really wanted to expand into mental health space. And so we took a look at their corporate brand, and we were able to incorporate the ASICS logo and some of the geometric elements that they had going throughout their corporate brand, while being able to play on that and create some more interesting textures for them, and create more of a standalone brand using like brighter secondary and tertiary colors. And fun fact for ASICS, I'm about to butcher this for anybody, all Latin speakers out there. But ASICS is actually an acronym for Anima Sana in Corpore Sano, which is Latin for sound mind in a sound body. So we pulled that and brought that forward in their name. And so their program name became ASICS Sound Mind, Sound Body.
All right, so when we think about how we communicate with your population, there are a couple things to think about. who your population is, where they work, how they work, and taking that into consideration with how we want to communicate with them. You might have a group of your population that are shift workers that don't sit at a computer all day. Maybe email isn't the best way to reach them. Maybe pushing communications through an app or SMS is the best way to reach them. Or if you have a heavy portion of your population that is spousal and at home, home mailers are actually still a really effective way to communicate. Knowing all of this and knowing who your population is and where they are and how they like to communicate is really impactful and helpful in knowing how we want to communicate throughout the year. And that's something that account managers take into consideration when we build out your communication strategy for the year. So I'm going to launch a survey. The question is, what tools do you currently use to communicate with your employees? It looks like a majority of you guys are currently using email and posters and flyers and meeting announcements. Intranet is also really popular, and a lot of our clients use that as well. So it's just something to consider, and it's something that we build into our strategy with our clients, understanding who your end user is, how they like to communicate. And like I mentioned earlier, when we send out our end user survey at the beginning of an implementation and we get to know who our end user is, how they like to communicate, we like to use that data when we're building out our communication strategy at the start of a relationship. But it's also effective to analyze throughout the year what's our click-through rate, how much is being opened, and look at campaigns effectiveness that way.
So to extend the brand and to extend your promotional power, we offer a 24/7 cloud service that we call Brand on Demand. And Brand on Demand is just loaded with resources that pull in your branding and are ready to go. So we have dozens of pre-built templates that are in there, including flyers, posters, tip sheets, digital display graphics, social media graphics, postcards, and they all utilize your brand's colors, logo, and URL for the program. And the best part is that what you see here is a very curated sleep campaign that we've put together. But within Brand on Demand, you have the ability to use your own images, photos, and content in any one of our templates. So when it comes down to it, the sky is really the limit. And this is another one that you might recognize from a little bit earlier. This is one of our newest initiatives, our leadership campaign, that's really been inspirational from working with our other culture forward clients in putting this together and really kind of driving this and internally and launching this internally. We know that leadership involvement really increases trust and drives engagement across the platform. And personal stories and missions from leaders really help humanize and break down barriers to that engagement. And then, of course, we offer our custom marketing services. So do you have a special project or initiative coming up? Do you have something that you don't see in our regular everyday offerings that you would really love to have? Well, our team is available at an hourly rate to sit down, have conversations with you, and really develop something that's unique to your program. So thank you. I just want to conclude today with a huge thank you to everyone who took the time to join us. We get really excited about this stuff, and we can hope that we can get you guys excited too. And the conversation never stops. So please reach out if you'd like to share your experiences with us. We'd love to hear more about your successes that you've had in your programs. And of course, if you'd like to learn more about us or how we can help you build a culturally intentional well-being brand and strategy, please visit us at adurolife.com. And so now we're going to open it up to questions you've asked during the presentation or any you have now. So please feel free to use the chat box to write in any questions that you have for us.
And I'm going to address a couple that came through already that I know that I can tackle. One of those questions was, how can I get a champion group started? I love that question because I'm passionate about wellness champions networks, and some of my clients have incredibly engaged wellness champions networks. I would recommend having a formal application process. The reason I say that is that when you have people apply and say their personal why. You're getting them to make the connection between wellness and their personal story. You're also asking for a commitment, a time commitment. What you're asking now, the qualifications or what you're committing to could be different. What you're asking from, I would say generally a year commitment of time, and now the hourly commitment per month or quarter could be different for you. But a commitment is important, and versus just volunteering. And then incentivizing people is also a worthwhile approach. If you have points on the program, that's a great way to do it. A lot of our clients have certain requirements that can be hosting a certain amount of events at your location that are wellness focused. That could be cooking classes, that could be lunch and learns, that could be hosting wellness walks during the day. Whatever you want to do, that wellness champion is responsible for a certain amount of events. Incorporating, having them be the experts of the program, though that's part of your requirements. And also there are a certain amount of calls that wellness champions are involved in. It's usually quarterly, but they're involved in that, and they're fully looped into what your program goals are and have visibility into. I mentioned that earlier, so that those wellness champions feel like they have some skin in the game and they're part of your team, and that they want to be and have an impact on driving those numbers forward for you. But ultimately, the way to do it, a lot of our clients have that application hosted within a tile on the platform. You can even get points for applying. And they have their own survey that they manage internally. But a formal application is how I would recommend doing that to start. Another question that I got was, my leaders are unengaged. What are some tips for getting them on board? I would say something that's important is helping your leaders understand the whole human approach. So a lot of leaders think of wellness just as a health metric. So educating them first about the fact that wellness is so much more. So if you think about my example about Darren, our CEO, and his passion for financial well-being, if you can engage in some conversations with leaders and understand a little bit more about them, they might not even know about the difference between a whole human approach wellness program and what they think of wellness as health and fitness. And that's okay. There's just an opportunity to educate and get them involved in that way. That's step number one, in my opinion. And then make the connection there. All right. Thank you guys so much for joining. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out.